Well, hello. Let's not touch it, okay? We're not gonna touch it. Thank you. Oh gosh, thank you. Hello, welcome back. It has been so long since I made a video. I'm so sorry about that. It's the holiday season and it's very, very busy. It is busy. As you can hear, the bug is here with me playing with his toys, which right now he actually looks like a cameraman. It's very funny. You do, yeah. Which I guess is appropriate because we're talking about you, so I guess it only makes sense that you're here. So the video that I want to make today is a video about the communication journey with George. And the first thing I want to say is that I very pointedly and very intentionally am not calling it George's journey to talking, because communication is so very many things, and oh, he's biting it now. Excellent. So I just kind of want to talk today about what George is. For context, George is my son. He has Down syndrome. He's almost 2. He'll be 2 in February, and it's December right now, so it is. I know. Today I'm going to tell you all about all of the things involving George and his communication, which is a journey. It is. That's right. It's a whole journey. It's a whole process. There's a lot to talk about. So I just kind of want to document all of this in case anybody watching this has a toddler with Down syndrome. Also, mostly, as always, I want to watch it for me to make sure that I'm keeping track of what George's communication looks like at this age. So that's it. We are going to talk about George and communication. So, the first thing that you should know about George is the end result, the current situation. So, George is almost 23 months old. Yes. And George is speaking a little bit. Yeah, you are. George is speaking a little bit. He's not saying a ton of words yet. And before that worries you, I want you to know that we have no concerns about that. And I'm going to start off with the main point of this first. We do not prioritize verbal speech for George. We never have. Obviously, that is a long-term goal because verbal speech is very important for communication. But at this age where he is developmentally, we are not concerned with the fact that George does not have a ton of words that he speaks. For a couple of reasons. Number one, he has Down syndrome, and a developmental and speech delay are very much expected. And so, you know, we know to look for the things that would indicate a speech delay of some kind. So yes, so there is that. There is, you know, George does have a speech delay. Not a major speech delay, and not one that is a concern to any of his team of therapists, but one that we are grateful to have support for. So George gets speech therapy every 3 weeks. I don't remember the schedule off the top of my head, but George does get speech therapy through our early intervention program in the state of Michigan. I don't know what this angle looks like now, but I tell you what, filming with the toddlers, hard stuff. George does get speech therapy through our early intervention program in the state of Michigan, which is really great. We love our speech therapist. She's really, really wonderful. The thing that's important to recognize about a speech therapist is that a speech therapist is not only there to teach George to talk. The speech therapist is there to teach George to communicate too, to help us get communication out of George. So I just wanted to be super clear about that from the very beginning, that like for us, we are not prioritizing verbal speech, and we're not concerned about his verbal speech right now. So, if you are watching this and you don't have a toddler with Down syndrome and your child is similar in age to George and is speaking more than George, that's wonderful. I'm very, very happy for you, and I'm very happy for your child. How smart. George, you did it. What did you do? That's so scary when you say that. We're not worried about George, and we're not worried about his development whatsoever. So I just wanted to kind of put that as a preface at the beginning of this video. So the first thing to know is that when George was 8 months old, maybe 9 months old, 8 months old. When he was 8 months old, he looked at Kyle, who is my husband and George's father. You did, that's right. And he looked right at Kyle and he said, "Dada." And that was a very consistent phrase. It was beyond babbling because he did it consistently and he did it to Kyle. So we counted Dada as George's first word that he spoke when he was 8 months old. So he spoke his first word then. After that, he babbled a lot. George has always been super vocal. George is very loud. So we knew right away that speech was something that he wanted to do because he was so verbal and he babbled so much. He was so talkative and so yelly and loud, and he was hilarious when he was teeny tiny. He's hilarious now too, but so that happened when he was around 8-9 months old. He started really babbling, really talking, really getting into it. Then George turned 1 in last February 2020. He turned. You did. Yes, you did. He turned 1. When he turned 1, he still said Dada. He had said Mama a few times when he was really upset. So it was like when he was really tired at physical therapy, or when he was awake from his nap and really wanted me to know, it was Mama. But beyond that, really the only words he was saying were Dada. And then he started saying, he said for a little bit Bobo. He would chase our cat, whose name is, you did. His name is Boris, and he would chase Boris around and say Bobo, Bobo, Bobo. But when he turned 1, we were also having difficulties with eating because of his tactile defensiveness, which I did make a video about. And George started tantruming at a very young age. George threw his first temper tantrum when he was 9 months old. So we knew that his early tantruming and all of that was a sign that he needed some more skills to communicate. So when George turned 1, we did baby signing. We were doing it to him, like as we would speak, very young, but we really started working on baby sign when he turned 1. The first sign, baby sign, that George ever did was please. So if we ever would say, would you like this, he would say please. And he was 14 months old when he said please. Then we started doing, the first thing that we targeted when we started teaching George to baby sign was we targeted all of the things that he okay, go play. We started targeting all of the words that would help him at meal times, because meal times were very hard on George for a very long time for a lot of reasons. So more, all done, please, things like that, so that George ended up being able very quickly to tell us when he was done eating. He would say all done. When it was time to eat, he would say eat, and when he wanted more, he would say more. That, as soon as that clicked, George's signing kind of exploded. He started signing. He signs a lot, and he still does to this day. So as we then we were in the pandemic, and so then we were, you know, doing things all virtually. He wasn't with anybody but me and Kyle for a long time. Still really kind of isn't, but all of those things, Dad does over in the other room. He is, yeah. All of that started happening. So our very first, George did speak a word before we started baby signing. You did, yeah. And then we started baby sign very, very, very very strictly. What do you see? What is it? Okay. So now George is almost 2. No touching, thank you. George is almost 2 and has a lot of signs. I have a list of some of the ones that I could think of. He signs yes, more, please, all done, milk, tree, fish, nice, again, bath, water, and he's just started to say help, and he's just started to say, what's the other one? Again. So those are just a few of them. I'm sure there are more that I just can't think of at this moment. So those are all of the signs that George can use in a very conversational way, which means George will come to me when he's hungry and sign eat. When George is finished eating, he will tell me he's all done. There is a lot of stigma, I think, around baby sign and the idea that if you teach a child to baby sign, you are delaying their verbal speech. And this is just simply not true. There's a ton of research about this. And again, we prioritize communication over speech. And they are different things. Speech is a form of communication. But as you're hearing right now, speech is not the only form of communication. So our goal was just to help George have a tool. Is what? Where's what? That doesn't, he's teaching. Our only goal was to give George the tools to help him communicate with us. So that's what we did. So we taught him to baby sign, and I have to say, it was a really good decision. I'm really, really glad we did that. Now George is almost 2, and he is saying more words, and he's signing a lot more words than he was at the, that's a stocking. You can't touch that. Can you be nice? So nice. Good job. George says, Dada, book, stick, where is it? What's that? And brush. He says brush. Can you say brush? Well, that's the sign for brush. Brush is actually the only word that he can say and sign, which is really exciting. Oh, you gotta be so nice. So I'm also here to say that since we have started teaching George baby sign, he has started throwing less tantrums, because often George is able to tell us what he wants through signing. So he's communicating with us. Hi. Yes? An example of this, a really great example of how baby sign has really been beneficial to us, is the other day George was very grumpy. And I said, George, I can't help you, I don't know what's going on. And he signed eat. And I said, are you hungry? And he put his hands up in the air, and when he does that, he's saying brush right now. When he does that, that means yes. So I made him some lunch, and I sat him down, and he looked at his meal, and he looked at me and said, stick, which is what George calls forks, because we say stick. Can you stick it? So you're sticking the camera. Yes, very good. Stick. Stick. Oh, he also says stomp and jump, are some other words that he verbally says. An example of George's verbal skills. He is beginning to follow simple commands. Oftentimes if I say to him, Georgie, will you go get a book? He will bring me a book. Are you getting a book? Okay, I'm sorry. You did? I don't think you did. No, honey, I don't think that you did. Are you going to get Mom a book? You didn't. So I was telling you about his verbal speech. So he's got this toy. Let me find it. He's got toy food that he loves to play with, and toy food is a great tool that his therapist has told us. But the toy food has a tiny box about this big of toy cereal, and it's like this big. And he was bringing it to me and handing it to me, and I was pretending to eat it, which is our game, and he was getting really mad, and he was saying, oh, and like getting really, really frustrated, and then he would take it back and try it again. And so I said, he thinks this is something else. So after a couple days of this back and forth of frustration, he brought it to me and he said, book. And I said, oh, you think this little triangle is a book? No, George, this is food. Eat. And then you saw him understand it, and then he took it and pretended to eat it, and then he put it with his toy food. So he kind of connected that. So that's really all that we are hoping for right now in George's age, is his ability to communicate. I think that people put a lot of stock in their child's ability to talk, and we just don't. We just really want George to be able to communicate with us. If George never spoke a word, we wouldn't be, disappointed by that, because George has made it very clear he can communicate with us. He already is learning to, and he's not even 2. The things that have helped George learn to communicate in various ways. The first thing that we do is we try really hard to ask him very few questions. And that looks like, instead of going, Georgie, can you say nose? Can you say ears? Or, George, show me your feet. George, where are your toes? Like questions like that. I just do a lot of having him mirror me. So I'll say, ears, mommy's ears, Georgie's ears, and I'll touch his, and then he'll touch them, and I'll say, Georgie's ears, that's right. Or I'll say, George, that's a tree, and he'll say tree. Now that he's getting a little bit older and he's got more signs, I'll ask him some open-ended questions. So I'll say, George, do you see a tree? And he'll look up and he'll point and say tree. Those have been really good things. The other thing is that we learn the signs with him, so that we are able to tell what the sign is, because he is a baby with a developmental delay, so his fine motor skills are a little bit developing very differently. So his signs don't always look like, this is the sign for more, George does this. So we can tell what they are, even if they're not exactly right. Like the sign for help is this, or up, and George goes like this. We know what that means because we learned it alongside him. That's another thing that helps, and a big thing that has helped. Our best resource is baby signing time on YouTube. And not on YouTube. There's like a whole program for it. Baby signing time. Those have really been the best, because baby signing time teaches the sign and says the word like repeatedly. And has kids with Down syndrome in their videos. So there's like awesome representation in that as well. So those are just a few things. We are going into the new year. We are done with speech therapy and any kind of therapy for the year 2020. So our goals for next year look a lot like what they do right now. As he learns to speak words, he's going to start losing the signs, which is fine, which is okay. But he has made it clear that he is pre-verbal, is what his, I think, is what the term is, where he has words and uses them, but just not consistently. You know, he is 2. And also, a speech delay is so common in kids with or without Down syndrome that, you know, being told that he has a speech delay is not one of the ones that, like, pulls at my heartstrings at all. Especially when George makes his desires and his wants so clear. You did? Or what's that? That's a book. It's just really cool. I've said it a couple times, but watching a small person, like a tiny child, learn how to communicate with the world is far and beyond the coolest experience I've ever had. And I'm really grateful that George has taught me to let him be the one to teach me how to communicate with him. So I'm not sitting here saying like, George, you need to talk. George, we have to learn to talk. George is saying, Mom, right now I communicate best using baby sign. And Kyle and I have both said, okay, that's great. We will do that. And we are both very much on the same page with that. There is no like disappointment. There is no negative feelings at all towards the fact that our 2-year-old doesn't say a lot of words. There just is not. His speech therapist is not concerned. So that is kind of my rambly video about our journey through communication with our almost 2-year-old with Down syndrome. As a recap, he is saying a few words, but he's signing far more. He is very communicative. He lets us know what he wants. He lets us definitely know what he doesn't want. He still is throwing temper tantrums because he's a toddler and he's developmentally learning how to communicate. But he's got a lot of tools that help. And I will say, without a single doubt in my mind, since having these communication tools, the tantrums have lessened. For sure, they have lessened. And for that, I'm really grateful for the therapists who have given us these tools and all of these things. That's all we have to say. We are approaching the holiday season, and is that good? No, that's not a drink. That's Bubbles. Bubbles, yeah. As we are approaching the holiday season, it's going to look very different this year, so I do want to make a lot of like holiday videos to kind of document. That's a curtain. Yeah, what our holidays are going to look like. So I do have a couple more things planned for the coming weeks, so keep your eye out. And I'm sorry for the length and time between videos. Things are just very wild right now. I didn't know things could be busy in 2020, but alas, here we are. So, thank you for watching. I will be back soon with another one, I promise, and I hope everyone's having a great day.